sometimes I think in life we play it too small. We play in life too small. God has something big for all of us, but because of our circumstances and situations, sometimes we let the circumstance and situation talk us out of our blessing. Sometimes your circumstance and situation will talk you out your blessing. Sometimes you think you ain't smart enough. You think you ain't good enough. You think you ain't educated enough. But who God has called and ordained to do great things, God will make a way for it to be able to happen. So get ready for your blessing. So I want to talk a little bit about death. I want to talk a little bit about death, and I want to talk a little bit about life. Because this gospel is talking about death and Jesus bringing life to dead situations. And in him bringing life to dead situations, he is reminding us we're created in the image of God. And sometimes he's calling us to go into a dead situation and bring forth life. That's what God is calling us to do. So remember, your power and your greatness and your authority is not based on what other people say about you. It's based on what God say about you. You got to remember whose you are and what God is calling us to do. Let me just go straight to the gospel reading. So y'all know almost every single one of these gospel readings, Jesus is going about doing the things that God is calling him to do. And almost every time he comes from somewhere, somebody is out to kill him. Everywhere Jesus went, somebody was out to kill him. And every time you see him with his disciples and we watch these stories, we look up and these folks are out to kill Jesus. So this particular time, Jesus get word that Lazarus, one of the people that he know, is dead. That Lazarus, well, first he hears that he's ill. He first hears that Lazarus is ill. And then lo and behold, Jesus did not go see about Lazarus immediately, and Lazarus actually died. Jesus, on his way to go see Lazarus, he decided, I'm gonna go see Lazarus. And we going back to Bethany. And I never forget, Jesus' disciples was like, hey, Jesus, you know these folks trying to kill you, right? You know you just left there, and them folks just tried to kill you. You mean you getting ready to go back to the place where these people just tried to kill you? And Jesus like, those who live in the day don't have to worry about the night. I'm living in the day, and I'm living for what my Father told me to do. There will be a time for me to die, but right now they can threaten my life all they want to. I'm going back to go see my friend Lazarus. So Jesus decided to go back, and I love Thomas in this. I love Thomas in this, because this is one of the times when you got your boys around you and you're about to go do a thing and they know your life is on the line, and Thomas was one of Jesus' boys, and he stopped and he said, come on, y'all. Let's go die with him. This fool getting ready to die. We going out here. We getting ready to go die with Jesus, because this fool going back into the lion's den, and we going with him. And if we die, we go die with him. It's ride or die. So his disciples was about ride or die. And I ain't trying to be funny. That's like some of us today. Sometimes your homeboy get in trouble, homegirl, whatever, and they stop and they say they dumb, but if they go take their behind over there, I'm going with them, because they're going to need a little bit of protection. So let me go with this fool who going right back where they just tried to kill him. So Jesus get there, and lo and behold, Lazarus had been dead 4 days. Lazarus was already dead. So then Jesus talking to his sisters, and he stopped and say, it's a shame that Lazarus died. And she was saying, Lord, if you was here, he wouldn't have died. And Jesus was like, just so you know, Martha, I'm the resurrection and the life. Those who die, if you dying in God, you know they should live again. Do you believe this? And she was basically, yeah, I believe you the Messiah, but my brother dead, and he been dead for 4 days, and he stink. And so then Jesus decided, take me to the tomb. So Jesus go to the tomb where Lazarus was, and he cries out to Lazarus, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man got up, and he walked. He told him to move the stone. They moved the stone, and Lazarus walked out. And all I can think about is, you know you got some power. If you gonna bring something back to life, and it's been dead, and it's been dead long enough that it stank. And he called out Lazarus, and Lazarus came out. And what Jesus was basically telling them was, I have the gift of life, and I'm coming to bring life. So in the midst of all this grief and all this death and all this sorrow, I'm stepping in and I'm bringing about life. And what he was letting his disciples know, y'all so scared of them punks over there who talking about taking my life. That's why I say I'm walking in the day, because I got the power of life and death in my hand. I ain't scared of them fools. I ain't running from them, and I ain't scared of them, because Jesus knew what his mission was. Then all those folks believed because they saw this man call out death and brought about life. We're created in the image of God.
Yes, sir.
What in your life is God telling you that is dead to step in and bring it to life? What is God saying to you over something that's so dead and been dead so long it stinks to high heaven? And he said, I want you to step right into that stinky, smelly, lousy death, and I want you to bring forth life. Sometimes God is saying, I'm going to put you in the midst of the mess. And in the midst of the mess, I'm going to give you authority to be able to bring forth life.
Come on.
So I want to say to us, what in your life is dead? And God is saying to you, I need you to resurrect this. I need you to bring this about. Not only that, I'm giving you authority to do it. I'm giving you the authority to call it out. Now, in this first reading about death 2, God was talking to a mortal man. And he said, look all around you. And the mortal man was in the midst of all this death. Dry bones all around him. And God said to the man, do you believe these bones can come back to life? And the mortal man said, Lord, with you, all things are possible. He said, I want you to prophesy. And I want you to say the word. And I want you to breathe on these dry bones. And I want you to bring all this death, the valley of the dead, back to life. You call it, you speak it, and you do it. And the mortal man did just as God commanded. With God, all things are possible. And God is saying to his children, call it, and bring it back to life. What is happening in this world? Absenteeism of fathers. God is saying, bring it back to life. For everybody who's been in prison and ain't got no hope, step into it and bring it back to life. Set the captives free. Open the eyes of the blind. Unstop deaf ears. I am sending you into the valley of the dry bones. And I am saying, bring it back to life. So what is God saying to us? In the city of Detroit, members of Church of the Messiah, I'm calling you where there's death, hell, destruction, gun violence, poverty, illiteracy, human trafficking, to step in and bring it back to life. Declare my word. Declare my spirit. Declare my son. Cause those things that be not as though they were. And now you step in and you make it possible. It is now our turn to call those things back to life. So in your life, what's dead? What's dying? What's been destroyed? What did Satan steal? What happened in your life that you lost out on? God is saying, I'm calling you to step in and take authority and to bring it back to life. God is telling us right now, if my people call by my name, and let me tell y'all this, we ain't all God's people. We're not all God's people. Wally say this all the time. We are all God's creation, but we're not all God's children. God created us, but in order to be a child of God, you know what you have to do? You have to choose to be on the side of God. It's a reverse adoption. Usually the parent chooses the child. In this case, the child chooses to be with the parent. And when you take on the qualities of the parent, you begin to take on the spirit of the parent and the ability of the parent. How do you know whether or not you're a child of God? There's a difference between children of God and children of the world who are his creation, but they're not his child. You can't let gun violence happen and be quiet. You can't let people live in poverty and be quiet. You can't allow racism to happen and be quiet. You can't let destruction of people take place and be quiet. You can't do it. Children of God are not going to allow it. So if you're a child of God, you can't be quiet, you can't be silent. But let me tell you something. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is in you. What do you have that you can resurrect right now? What power do you need to call out? If God was saying to you, mortal man or mortal woman, I'm telling you to go into the valley of the dry bones. I'm telling you to go into the city of Detroit. I'm telling you to stand in the hood, and I'm telling you to declare victory where there's no hope. I'm telling you to declare victory where there's no hope. Because he said, if my people, not all people, my people call by my name, humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear their prayer from heaven. I'll heal their land. God is saying, I will heal your land, but he called us. So let me end with this. That same Jesus they tried to kill and destroy was buried and rose on the third day. And they thought they killed him and buried him, but Jesus was planted. And just like a seed, he came right back up again and declared all power in heaven and earth is in his hand. And he's saying that resurrection ability is on the inside of you. What are you now going to do to resurrect all of the stupid around you? What are you going to do? Because now he's given that power to us. So I just want to say to everybody who is listening to this, y'all know this church is about resurrection. Y'all know this church in the neighborhood that was falling down, we put the houses back. We educated our kids. We created and built our own businesses. We did it ourselves. We ain't looking for nobody to come save us. Salvation was given to us, and we've taken a hold of that salvation, and we changed the trajectory of our community. But we still got work to do. So let us decide right now, what are we going to resurrect? And then if you can hear the voice of God talking to you saying, now it's your turn. I'm giving you the ability, and I'm giving you authority, and it is coming from me, and I'm telling you, it is time for you to call out what was dead and bring life to a dead situation. Come on, Lord.
Go ahead and give God a real kind of praise for that message from Pastor Barry. He wants to restore life. When I was looking at this text, I was thinking back, and people often talk about the fact that Jesus wept when Lazarus died. And too often we want to assume that that weeping was because his emotions were like ours when it comes to death. But that was not why Jesus wept. Jesus wept because these people who had been with him all this time still had a little bit of faith. Here they have the master in their presence, and they don't realize he can still raise somebody from the dead. When it says that Jesus wept, we want to take on this personal human thing and say, yeah, well, Jesus wept, so we have the right to weep too, and we do. But his weeping was not the death of Lazarus. You got to remember, Jesus knew what he was going to do. That's why he told him, I'll be there in a couple of days. He knew he was going to come and raise him from the dead, but what baffled him was that his people still had no faith. And the first thing I want to point out about the fact that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead is Jesus didn't intend for young people to die. All of the people that Jesus rose from the dead in the Bible were young people. When he stopped the funeral procession and touched the bier, touched the casket, it said he returned the woman to her son, the widow woman. When the centurion soldier came to him and said that you can heal my daughter, he said, okay, young lady, and raised up the young lady. See, my brothers and sisters, we look at the statistics today where they say that young people from 17 and down are being killed by gun violence. That's the number one killer of young people in the United States. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with that. See, Jesus don't intend for our young people to die that way. And Jesus has given us a formula and a way to change these things around. And the reason why we can't do it is because we, just like them people back then, we ain't got enough faith to believe that Jesus can fix this thing. But I come to tell you that Jesus can fix this thing. You know the story. I remember Pastor Barry shared this at a March once. He said, you remember when in Detroit we used to have Devil's Night? You remember every Devil's Night would come and they want to burn the city down, and folks you were on the lookout. You had to get all the volunteers together, hundreds of folks running around with the lights and trying to make sure nobody would burn the house down. But guess what? We don't even talk about Devil's Night no more. So don't tell me what God's people can't do when they get together and decide to make a change. So the first thing I want to say, Jesus did not intend for young people to die. The second thing I want you to understand is Jesus is trying to get us to the point where we realize that everything we need is found in him. Every good and perfect gift comes from God. There is no failure in God. There ain't no other way to get through this wicked world unless you got a real God on your side. Somebody go ahead and give me some praise. But when I think about the fact that he didn't intend for young people to die, we don't believe in miracles. Jesus left here and said, greater things than these shall you do. Y'all know this. You know how a lot of now you can go at the church, you can have a couple of people trained, and you can actually bring defibrillators into the church. Now, what are defibrillators for? The defibrillators, them things that they give you that electric shock, and actually what they're doing when they do that, they're bringing people back to life. Because you know how many folks got testimonies about how they were dead and went on the other side and they wasn't here for 5 or 10 minutes, and the next thing you know, the Lord brought them back. The Lord is still working miracles, my brothers and sisters. We don't have to believe that that kind of power is gone. The only power that's gone is our ability to activate that power, because we what? We believe in money. We believe in pistols. We believe in our clothes. We believe in a roof that's over our head. We don't believe there's a spiritual realm that's got more power than anything physically we can do. Go get in and give God some praise. I'm going to close this. When I think about this stuff and I think about the fact that the church has lost its power, we no longer the real powerhouse in the community. You know, we done got weak and we done come in and we done closed our doors and we hiding from the thugs outside. We don't realize we got the author and the finisher of all faith. But because the church has lost its power, I'm trying to think of an illustration that I could use. I know I've been a troubleshooter for the last 40-something years. Phone world, computer world, all that stuff. And most of the sites I go to, whether it be a big 911 center or whether it be a little home office, you go in and you always have a problem where they ain't got no power. And you walk in, you say to the young man or the young woman, well, let me see it. You press the power button on the computer and the computer won't come on. You know, and then you start saying, well, somebody did something wrong. You take all the cables are loose. It's called troubleshoot. You take all the cables are loose and you put them in another place. You say, well, but its power still won't come on. You look down and you see that the power is plugged into the power strip. And the power strip is plugged into the outlet on the wall. But you know how many times what I find when I go to these places that run into this kind of trouble? The power strip is plugged into the wall. The computer is plugged into the power strip, but the power strip ain't turned on. My brothers and sisters, sometimes that's how simple it is for us to get God's blessing in our life. Sometimes we don't realize it ain't the complicated things that give us problems. It's the little bitty things like the power strip just ain't turned on. Everything is lined the way it's supposed to be. And how does the power strip get turned off? Every time somebody gives you a little praise, a little accolades, give you a little pat on the back, you the man, you sung the heck out of that song, you know what I mean? Oh, sister, you know what I mean? You read that gospel so powerful, and then we look at me and we start getting the big head. And as we start getting the big head, slowly but surely, the power strip goes off because we don't realize that no matter how good we are, all our gifts, skills, and abilities came from him, and we stop thinking that Jesus Christ is the power source and we the power source. And what happens when you think you're the power source? Somehow you get disconnected, and when you get disconnected, you start failing and falling in life, and you don't realize it's because I'm disconnected. And sometimes we got to turn around and say, Father, I'll stretch my hand to thee, for no other help I know. If thou withdraw thy hand from me, oh Lord, where shall I go? When I think about the goodness of Jesus and all that he's done for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah, I thank God for saving me. So the next time you feel like you're weak, the next time you feel like you can't go on, check your power source. Is your power source your bank account? Is your power source where you live? Is your power source what you drive? Or is your power source the risen Savior? Go ahead and give God some praise. Why? Because he woke you up this morning and he started you on your way. Go ahead and give God some praise. Why? Because he gave you a mind to think with. He gave you a heart to have compassion with. He gave you legs to walk with. He gave you hands to work with. He gave you a tongue to talk with. So go ahead and give him some praise.